I know, it's pretty cool, huh? Well, good morning, everybody. This is the Free Methodist Media Connection Meetup. This is the third Saturday of every month. This one came really fast. This one hit me out of nowhere. I am Chris Frazier. I work with Free Methodist Church in Southern California as the communications consultant. When I've got about 30 plus years of worship leading and media experience. My co-host is Pete. He's over in the corner.
Hello.
Pete Wilson is from Purpose Church in Pomona. He is the sort of media pastor. I'm going to call you the media pastor because director doesn't really, I don't think it fully encompasses what you do. Like, you are a discipler, and you treat that as a discipleship opportunity rather than just, hey, this is just the business that we do. So, I mean, I know your official title has like director in it, but
I've been baptized people before.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Dropped everything to have, more important conversations than technical things.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So we record this every month so that our people can go and watch it and kind of pick up on the topics. What we do is each week or each time we get together, we have a topic that we kind of hit. And this week, Pete hit me up with sort of an interesting one, talking about displays and using displays on stage and within your production. But before we get started with that, I have kind of a random one, because this has been my topic du jour this week, has been Chat GPT, because the whole Chat GPT 4 thing, the GPT-4 thing came out, and it like all of a sudden like it's like, oh, it's more accurate, it can do more things. But I've been trying it out and using it in some of our communication stuff, and so I kind of want to throw that out there as a like, A, have you heard about it? And B, have you even tried Chat GPT as a thing?
So I'll just jump in. Yeah, go ahead, Michelle. I'll let you jump in. But I was going to say, that's actually a fun topic, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually just started messing around with that the last few weeks. So, Michelle, go for it.
I was just going to say I heard about it on Twitter. I have no idea what it is, other than it supposedly has like left-leaning answers or something. I don't know.
No, it doesn't. And actually it has somewhat racist answers if it's the old version. It's sort of notoriously fascist.
Oh, okay.
Yes. It's
So what is it and how does it work?
It's actually pretty hilarious. So I'm going to share my screen here just so we can all see what it is. Yeah, in fact, various versions of the same sort of linguistic chat have been released and had to be pulled from things because they started like spouting Nazi propaganda. It's actually pretty fun because the internet is what it is. But the whole idea is that it's a natural language AI generative text tool. Okay, so what it does is it says here is a large data set, the entire set of like text on the internet, right? Go and look at that and create tokens, create these like here is a word and here is a response that maybe comes along with it, right? So here's a word, here's a possible response that comes with it. Here's an idea, here's a possible response that comes with it. Collect all of those into a giant database. And then you can go and type a sentence that it's going to then, it says it's called tokenizing, right? And it takes each of those words and says, okay, well, this word means this. So based off of that, I pull from this database and I generate text that comes out here, and then I have it here and it generates here and here and here. So for example, I could write in this, in the voice of Scooby-Doo, write a short story about the demise of Silicon Valley Bank. Okay, so Ruh-roh, it was a rocket stormy night in Silicon Valley when Ruby and Gay received a distressing message from their friend, a tech entrepreneur who had just lost all his company's funding from Silicon Valley Bank. Okay, so all I did was tell it, I want you to write a story in the voice of Scooby-Doo, and it gets the idea, right?
So what
Rest
if you
in
had
peace.
Scooby-Doo write a song
Okay.
in a certain key and give me the chord
There
chart?
you go.
Well, so I was just watching, I don't know if you guys ever watched the YouTube channel Sarah Dietschy. So she was talking about how all the YouTubers are switching over to DaVinci Resolve. But one of the things that she was mentioning was that all of the music bed was generative AI. The entire video was all AI generated music. I was just blown away. I was like, are you kidding me? Because it sounds normal. It sounds like I kind of want to get my hands on this. But like, have you guys ever thought about like AI as a tool in the work that we do? Have any of you thought about that?
So I just have started thinking about it because a few weeks ago, I went on a road trip. So kind of like what we were talking about with Europe and Arrowhead and dealing with just the devastation of the snow up there. My parents live in Northern California, and there were some earthquakes in December that had a very similar effect because their town was just like the epicenter.
Right.
So similar with, old brick chimneys that were just, most of the town is red flag. Anyway, so I was on a long road trip to go up there a couple weeks ago to go help do some repairs. And this kind of came up on the radio program I was listening to. And then I stopped with a buddy of mine that lives in Stockton, who's a programmer, one of my best friends. And so we were playing around with this. And he actually has started using it as his go-to instead of Google. So because he's, he does coding. So he'll go and he'll type in, do this, what such and such code in C+ or whatever. And it gives him all the code that he needs. And it shows a breakdown of how the code, how it was figured out. And then we just did simple data searches. Like, I have a 1997 Honda Civic. What's the ignition replacement? And it took a little bit longer because it was doing a data search.
Right.
And it came up with, and then we verified, and then it gave instructions of like how to install it. So he's kind of switched to using it for just like, it's more accurate and a better search for him than Google is, because it's searching all the things. And that's kind of where my mind was like going. And then, as you start thinking about like, can actually have a flashback of back when the internet first came out. Because I know I'm old enough to remember that. And I remember sitting at my buddy's house who had the ISDN line versus, DSL. And he was like, speeds of 256K. And he was showing me what he was doing. I think he was playing Doom and stuff like that. And I was like, wait, I can search like any question on the internet and something will come up. And so it's almost like that. Whoa, like, wait a minute, it's a whole new era of a new tool that you can use for not just searching for information, but kind of that shift into content creation, which there's, of course, like a crazy scary side with AI and all that comes with that.
Right.
But at the same time, with the scary side, there's also the positive and useful side. So my brain's been thinking just like I haven't landed and I haven't even really started using it yet. But as I've been involved with like, oh, wow, like if we're writing scripts or I've got to even find research for, because that's one of my jokes that I always say to people is like, not that smart. I'm just probably better at Googling things than you are. Like really, that's it. Like I just have a tenacity to go find it. And this could possibly make my life easier and less Google searching. So that's kind of how my brain has been kind of like wrapped around it rather than just the straight up content creation. But I know some of our pastors on staff have been messing around with it and they were like, hey, write a sermon on such and such. And then they were it was more joking, but there's actually like, oh wait, you could almost get kind of a rough draft of this thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Usable
for emails. That's what we're doing. So we actually asked it to write for our annual conference. I was like, I want to see what it would say about write an introduction for a one-day free Methodist Church annual conference called Thriving Together. It's my pleasure to welcome you to annual conference, Thriving Together. Today, we gather as a community of faith to reflect on our shared values, celebrate our successes, and explore ways in which we continue to grow and thrive together. Oh my gosh, it's our language. It's the way that we in the church talk about faith and all this kind of stuff. And it's generic, right? It doesn't necessarily hit specific beats, but like it's structurally pretty darn close. I mean, have you guys heard about Dolly? So Dolly is from the same company, OpenAI, and it's the image version, right?
Oh, okay.
So like
I haven't put this one, but I have.
So
heard
like
about it, yes.
creating backgrounds for church graphics. Like right now, we all are using the same libraries, right? Everybody uses Unsplash if you don't have a budget, right? And then if you do have a budget, you're probably using Storyblocks. And then if you actually have a real budget, you're probably using Shutterstock, right? Like it kind of moves up in that road. And you're spending a ton of money on images and spending time looking for images. But what if you could create images, right? So like, okay, I want background image for Easter of 3 crosses with sun shining behind. See what it does. Come on, you can do it. I believe in you. These are the images that are on screen are ones that other people have made using the AI. It's obviously going to be slower than what you could do with the text base, but I mean, now that we're in line, it's generating it for us. It's got a Shiba Inu in a hamburger. Reading your fate in a giant hamburger. That's fantastic. I approve of that.
Have you guys seen the video, the DJ video, with the Eminem voice?
No.
That was all AI. So there's I guess I don't know because I don't follow. I'm not in the electronic music world or DJ world. But I saw a video on I think it was on Instagram or maybe YouTube where a fairly popular DJ asked the Chat GBT to write a verse in the style of Eminem. And then so it wrote it and saying how much electronic music is the future of the world or whatever. It said something, right? And then it grabbed it and then put it into another AI bot that would give you an audio that sounds like Eminem. And then he used it as a sound clip to play in a like at an actual DJ event or whatever. And the crowd goes nuts. And he shows the audio of it. And I was like, wow, that's
amazing.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's kind of amazing as a tool for just the starting point, right? It's not the final thing. Like no one can be, the Marshall Mathers hit because he was weird and he was unlike really a lot of what everybody else was doing at the time. Right.
Right.
And like that is the one thing that AI can't do. Right. AI can simply synthesize things that already exist. It cannot, it doesn't have the ability to look at the moon and say, oh, look, that looks like a bunny.
Yeah. Right.
And then create mythology around the rabbit and the moon. Right. Like that's not something that it does. So I do think it is interesting.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah. and at that point, I, for one, welcome our AI overlords. So,
Well, that was the radio program I was listening to. They were asking it questions like, will AI take over the human race? And it was funny because they were like these total, like, just like kind of BS answers. Like, it was answering it, but it really wasn't. It was leaving it very open to like, it's like, here's the official answer, but you could read into it more. And it was almost like somebody that was just kind of making some stuff up, like they didn't know it was very interesting because they didn't flat out say no. And it was, there you go. Exactly.
So
it was like somebody faking it, writing about something they don't know about. It was almost the best way I could describe it, which is another thing. What I've seen on some of it is like, there's a hollow or emptiness to it if you get into a certain specific thing. Like, where and that's I think one of the bigger differences where but for some of the stuff like you said, for emails and composing things, for me that's like I'm not a strong writer, but I have the ideas in my head, so like if I can get the gist of what I want and then when I see it I'm like, oh yeah, now I can edit that into what I need it to be. So
yeah why am I blanking on it's not sermon, it's not series, it's not a worship, it's a worship service. There we go. Service. Okay. What is what it says?
Wow.
We come together to lift up our voices in song, to pray for each other and for the world, and to listen to the teachings of our faith. It even threw an amen. I mean, come on.
It's amazing that it it uses like, the Christianese, it's so amazing that it does, wow. That's
one of the things about it is that it's drawing from a large collection of text data, right? This is how we talk. Like that's all it's doing is it's taking our generic language. This is what we sound like. This is what we sound like to other people. This is like we sound kind of generic when we talk about our faith. So one of the things that I've actually been doing is I've been putting in prompts for things that people are like, I'll ask people to go and write for us for our stuff, right? Like, hey, we need this kind of thing. I'll put in a prompt in here and I'll compare what they give me to Chat GPT. And if they give me something that is as generic as Chat GPT, I send it back. I'm like, I'm sorry, like we need to be more specific. Like we have specific values as our particular churches have values and identity and people. Like if we aren't referencing our people, if we aren't talking about what we did, how we, all the things that we're doing, like I don't think it's good enough. Right? Like I think every church site that uses stock photos on their homepage that needs to be wiped out. Like every single church website that uses stock photos needs to be wiped out because you're advertising something that isn't real.
Right. Good point.
Well,
so anyhow, I just want to throw that out there as an
intro topic. Photos from website.
You guys actually I take it back. There was
a certain person might have put those there.
Hey, not me, somebody else in my family, but yeah. But
I think
no, you know what it is? It's that one picture of the woman from Unsplash with the hat and the yellow sweater. Like she shows up everywhere, absolutely everywhere. It's just one of the funniest things.
Yeah, I think we've gotten most of it. Did it ever come back with a picture?
No, it quit. It gave up altogether. If I get a picture, I'm going to try it again. Let's see here. Background photo. I'm going to try it again. And if it comes up, I'll let you guys know. It got a little confused. It got to the end, and I think it was like, oh, I think I've got a pretty good idea of this, and then it just gave up. So, So Pete, you were going to talk a little bit about using displays.
Yeah, it's a topic that I have a lot of, I guess you'd say, experience. Been using displays in a church since the early days of transparencies and Sharpies.
What?
So
were you the junior hire who sat up in front and swapped?
I think I was younger than junior hire.
Nice.
Yes, I absolutely. I would sit there and you see your finger. Oh, there's my finger. And then even when I worked at the church in Pasadena, which is now Rose City, I believe is the name.
Yep.
So when I worked there, we didn't even have a video projector. So we actually we were using transparencies in the early 2000s. I think I was there 1999, 2000. Anyway. So,
yeah, we did that at Glendora Friends.
We
had like 120 people on a Sunday.
So and then got that first projector with PowerPoint. Oh man, life was beautiful. Then started working at the church that I'm at now. I've been there for 20 years and gone through, we had projectors. I think my first week on the job, I was upgrading our projectors, going up on scaffolding, all that kind of good stuff. Dealing with, so there's projection, obviously, which I think most people are probably using. Then TV started getting bigger. People with, a small enough room, you could get away with using televisions. And the prices are incredibly great for what you get for the size of the TV. I remember when I saw, I think the first 80-inch TV at NAB, and it was like,
oh yeah,
$10,000 or $20,000, and it was like, what? And then now you can go to Costco and buy one for like $1,000. So,
right.
And then the world of LED screens came along, and there was like, oh man, the price again, like TVs was just not attainable. And then all of a sudden the price like dropped to like, whoa, that's less than a projector. So that's kind of where, and we've messed around with kind of every version of those displays. So I don't know, and just kind of, we can open this up for topics as we go into questions. But we went through many years of having projectors, very underpowered projectors. We have a really large room. And our struggle was lights. So like where we had a projection, we didn't have the ability to do rear projection. So we had visible projectors, which was just kind of ugly. And then light control. So we have a choir, and then we have band, and we have the projector. The screens were really close to where the choir stands, so you need to light the choir. And then you have the light spilling onto the screen. And if you're not familiar with your projection screens, one of the questions they get asked, and it's not the person's fault that asks, they're like, they want to use them outside. I'm like, guys, can't compete with the sun. Even just the freshly set sun. So we'll do, evening events. Oh, can we set up a projector? I said, guys, 30 minutes. You have to wait about 30 minutes once the sun sets.
Yeah.
Before the most powerful projector I have is even going to be adequately visible outside. And just it's hard for people to understand. But then if you explain like the brightness, our projector, this is how bright it is, and here's how bright the sun is. And if you show them like a lumen count, then they kind of understand. And if I take a light meter and take it and put it directly in the sun and show them that, and then see the lights and the ones in our sanctuary, and you put the light meter and just like this many lumens washes out our screen, let alone the sun. So that was a big struggle we had for many years, and we were able to upgrade some lighting to get them to Lico's, spotlights that could be more controllable with shutter blades and all that kind of good stuff. Then you'd still have, you'd have to have a lot of dark area, especially because we do have choir, and a lot of those folks are older. So now you're creating where they have to walk these dark areas because you can't light up, because then it washes out the screen. And then when we did a big renovation, and I was going to share, let's see, where did I put it? I was going to share because it's kind of fun. I'll share my screen here. We did our renovation. Let's go tab, photos. Starting kind of 2001 and finished last year. So just kind of scroll through. Here's just a nice picture of.
Look at that carpet.
Oh yeah, the blue carpet. So if you can see kind of where there's a metal glass cross at the very kind of back there. We had a screen that came down, and that would be our big screen. And you can see the two screens kind of on the side, left and right there. And that's what we did and what we could do, but was always an issue with light spilling onto that. So sorry, I'll go through all these. This is our renovation.
Okay, so some of these shots with like where the carpet's pulled up and you can see the flooring. Yeah. So this was built when I was in junior high elementary school. I totally still remember running around on that when I was a kid.
Well, and this shot was so weird. So when you pulled all the pews up,
oh wow,
that blue, because under the pews it was like brand new carpet, and when it was all revealed, standing up there, like it took me in a time machine, because I remember being a kid in the 80s, and this color scheme, just the overwhelmingness of that color was like I felt like I went in a time machine, especially because like there were sections of it that they felt so new. It was kind of weird.
You know what it kind of reminds me of is Star Tours.
Yeah. So we gutted the whole place. We took it all down. Sorry, scroll. There it is, all cleaned up.
Oh wow.
Getting ready to. So we just ripped it down to the bare minimal structural. Those walls that are there, there's brand new bathrooms underneath those, so we couldn't tear that out. We didn't want to have to undo that. So let me get to the whole, and the amount of money that is right there. That was a very.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Getting.
One pile of wood.
Right. Like what's that joke? Like show me you have money without showing me you have money.
Yeah,
exactly. Like just show a picture of a bunch of wood. Yeah.
So I'll just kind of so one of my struggles that actually made me question the whole renovation that we were doing at one point was projection. And so we had originally were going to try to go with projectors, and we were going to, so we kind of leveled off in the way we made the choir loft. I wanted to move the screen, the side screens particularly. We needed to move. We were going to go with an LED screen on a stage for kind of our backdrop, but we still needed those side screens, which were for IMAG, for image magnification, because the room is so big, and the one on the stage is going to be not normal ratio. So it's a background. It's not for just typical videos and slides. So I was trying to play around with. They make screens, projection screens that go up and down. You can attach the projector. Again, because I couldn't do rear projection. So I was just early on, before we got to this part, I was struggling, and where I needed to put the screens, we couldn't do it with projection. And then we found a company who I actually am not going to say anything negative about, but I'm also not going to promote them. They're in Southern California that we actually went through for getting some LED screens. Their prices are just nobody could beat their pricing. But there's somebody that I worked with. He left that company and started another company. So if anybody's interested, I will highly recommend his new company. Just because he contacted me afterwards, and he's offering similar pricing, and he's got tech support that the other company doesn't have. That was the big weak point. So it's just one I won't say something negative about, but I just can't recommend them because of my skill set is the only reason we were able to get the screens installed that we have.
Sure.
It was a little bit of a nightmare, but at the same time, now I'm very knowledgeable about LED screens. So, but when I saw those prices, I was like, their screens are less money than the projectors I'm looking at. So, and so where that lift is actually getting ready to hang our speakers, but that's about where we ended up putting the side screens. We'll get there. There's our, got the speakers and everything up. So that wooden wall right there, that is where the LED screen is now mounted.
Okay.
They'll start taking shape here. Wish the renovation went as fast as I'm scrolling through.
What was the total time on all of this?
So we started September 2021, and then we were hoping to be done by Christmas of 2021, and it didn't happen with a number of delays. And then we were open Easter of last year, so Easter 2022. So
okay.
That was our opening day. And why? Where's the rest of the photos? Did I not upload them? Well, that's dumb. Way to go, Pete. I will find those. Show you. I'll find the current photos of.
But while you're doing that, Pete, I'm gonna steal from you because I'm gonna show what the AI generated.
Okay.
For us here. So this is quite a photo. No, I did change. I changed it because I said I wanted Elmo looking surprised in front.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. I mean, it's kind of getting across the point. So, but like, it's like, okay, well, here's our first set. Here was the cross with the 3 crosses with the. I mean, come on, we've all downloaded and used that photo before.
Yeah.
Now I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what this is with like.
Right.
It's like, cross. Sure.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and the crazy thing is that we all have, I'm sure, have somebody, that is highly knowledgeable with Photoshop or some photo editing software. So you could very easily start with that as your base, starting project, and then go to town on Photoshop or, whatever it be.
Absolutely.
To change this. That's really cool. It's crazy.
All right. So here it is. I had to jump over to my other Google photo album.
Right.
Great. So that is the center screen. Again, that's our backdrop. Wow. And then we have the side screen. There's only one up in the picture. There's obviously a mirrored one on the other side. So those are the side iMac. But all my issues that I was running into with projection and having to move the screens, and we still are actually. It's funny. Just with, I think our first topic of our first meeting was the supply chain stuff.
Yeah.
So the side screens there's a mechanism to actually bring those, because they're a little bit high for viewing from the floor, but they're at that height because we have a choir and orchestra at our first service. So if it was lower, it would block our choir and orchestra. So the mechanism to make it go up and down is quite expensive, and just even to get the hardware, I just now am going to be getting a quote.
Wow.
I just did kind of the final walkthrough with an electrician. So we can actually, because right now we have a lift and we can go up there to do any maintenance on them. But we had to build those in the air from a lift. So LEDs are made up of various panels. So there was 2 of myself and a team member in our lift boom bucket, and 2 of my other team members would come down. They'd hand us the LED panels. We'd go up and attach them and connect it, come back down, do it. So it was versus the mechanism, we could lower the entire rigging.
Right.
And we could take them off and on. So, but for us, projection, the issue with lighting is you flip the switch now. So if you go to LED, they're actually so bright that you actually have to increase the rest of your lighting, which is great because now you can see how much light is up in that choir loft area. Before we had to make it really dark so it didn't spill where that wood and the cross is. That's where the screen would be. So now actually we want to light that area up, which now has a really, really nice, safe, well-lit choir loft for a choir. And it doesn't impact our screens at all. So you can put a spotlight right on the LED screen and you won't even tell. If it's off, you can tell, but when it's on, you won't be able to tell at all.
Wow.
So, and it's worked well for us. Now, LED introduces another issue if you're using cameras in iMag.
Oh, yes.
Then I know Chris has dealt with this. So LED screens, of course, can be used as a background. In fact, that's what they're doing for a lot of studios for filming now. I think Mandalorian was one of the big ones that really kind of ran with it.
Yeah.
You know, they build just these amazing backdrops and their LED screens so the actor can actually have a real background behind them. They also work as light sources. So I've seen where you can build, I know in a church we call it a lid, where you have an LED like as a light source above everybody.
Right.
Or it would be like your ceiling in the studio.
Skybox,
yeah, you can simulate clouds and you get those reflections on people's faces. And the issue is the pixels, the size of the pixels. So ours are 3.9 millimeters. So if you walk probably about 10, 15 feet away, you're going to start really seeing that there's individual pixels, whereas our first seat is about 30 feet away from the screen. So if you're sitting in the first row, we're well within that distance where you won't actually see the individual pixels with the naked eye.
Right.
Now, as soon as you get a camera on there, then you're going to start seeing stuff. And so it's your refresh rate, your frame rate, the camera angle that creates a moire effect, which we're still haven't perfected with our stuff. We'll get some camera angles that still get that.
Yep.
Those side screens, one of my issues was those are a low refresh rate, which was made their price less. So if I can't put those side screens on a camera at all, even photography, it looks really bad. So I actually hope to, as prices are what they are, and eventually we will need to upgrade. I want to take those panels off, which it kind of goes into the other thing you can do with LEDs, is you can use them as a light source. You can use them as backdrops because they're completely configurable. So each of those screens, the middle one, that's made up of 56 panels. And each of those panels has 8 smaller panels. So, so it's all these multiple panels, which I think I had photos of. Let me see here. Anyway, and those ones are held on with magnets. So you could build like a little piece that would be a window, or it could be if you're building a set, or I actually want to take them and make actual physical windows because we don't have windows in our building. So I actually want to make fake windows. I want to put a camera on the roof so that we could actually, most of the time, it would be literally showing what's to the north of us and to the south of us. That's a actual what you would see if there was a real window there. And then you could change it. So like, so for today, we want it to be something else, but we could also just have literally a window with a digital source. And that's some of the stuff that LED really brings to the table with creativity, and obviously whatever your budget allows you to do. But man, it's just kind of changed our life for what we were able to do, where projection, if you can get away with it, you can have a projector as your or a screen as your backdrop, and it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
But we could do that during the pandemic when we had full control of our lighting and we didn't have our choir up there. We had some really beautiful looking stuff, but when we went back to in-person environment, you can't achieve that because of how it impacts, because we're not going to treat the room as a studio for a live congregation. We're here to worship together, and it's not a big just showy presentation. It's a time to actually have authentic, worship together. And so that's kind of the trade-off with projection. And then they're just, they can be noisy. They're big. They take a lot of power if you're doing something that's the size of our space.
Yep.
Which, side note, if anybody's looking for, I have on Facebook, there's an audio video forum that I've been following that has used stuff. I mean, they have I just saw a 14,000 lumen Christie projector with lens for like $6,000. I mean, that's like an $80,000 to $100,000 projector if you were to buy it new.
That's incredible.
If anybody's looking for really high-end projection, I have a great resource. Some of the stuff is not local, but some of it does ship. I actually just bought 8 Source 4s from somebody in Palm Springs, which are a light fixture, for $1,200.
Nice.
Source 4s, which we needed desperately, and that was a savings of even buying them used of over $2,500. Because the cheapest I could find them used right now is about $300 each.
You're kind of the master of finding used gear. Like I need to have you Yeah, I've got like a list, and I need to like have you take a look at my list and just pay you to like be my purchaser.
And I've had to get a little bit more creative because I used to eBay. I just would go to eBay all the time,
Right.
And eBay, I still can find stuff on eBay, but it's not like it was.
Right.
So I've been trying to explore other avenues, and some of these these marketplaces on Facebook, Craigslist, they're a little bit scarier in certain ways. And like, this guy even he preferred cash, but he was open to PayPal. And I'm like, okay. But I kind of verified like this, it was a kid like in his 20s, and he worked at this church in Palm Springs, and it was all legit. But I had this kid, Ian, that works with me. I had him go pick it up, and I said, okay, just, let me know if anything's sketchy. Like I can use my cell phone and he said no, it was all, the guy was kind of weird, but it worked out. So took him up in like their church attic, and they had a nice facility. They had upgraded all their fixtures to LED. And so I sent the guy PayPal to his account, and we got our fixtures, so we're good to go. I have proof of delivery for our finance team, and we're good.
So Lambs currently is using, you guys are on projectors, right?
Yes, projectors. Rear projectors.
And you guys have a really bright room, generally speaking, because you've got the windows all along the sides.
Yeah, we have on both sides. We have windows all the way down.
Yeah. So how are you finding that your projectors are working? Have you thought about switching to LEDs, or are you like, no, this is the tech, we built it in, this is how we're going?
Actually, I think now, knowing, because this is an area I know nothing about or very little about, so knowing that one of our projectors we have has like a blue line on it, or whatever on the projector, kind of thing, and it flashes every once in a while and freaks out. So so I know we're in the talks of trying to possibly either fix that or get them changed or something like that. But knowing that to buy a whole new projector and the LED screens are almost just the same price, I would say maybe look to start going towards that route, because we have, the way the church is set up, we have two screens on each side of the church, kind of like how you guys have up in the loft. But we could easily outfit that area to just fit the LED screens. So we could easily.
What size are they roughly?
Oh, I don't know. They're at least Michelle? Probably at least 10 feet wide, I would say.
At least.
Yeah.
How big is your room? How many people roughly can you guys hold?
Will it hold 500?
Yeah, I would say around there.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's probably a 10 or 12 foot screen would be.
I wonder if I have a picture I could upload.
Yeah.
Now, does the screen, does it look good? Like, is it like, have you guys been able to control the light where you can actually see what's on the screen, or is it something you guys have struggled with? Like, it just doesn't look right.
Yeah, so it depends. It obviously, and I'm sure you realize that had this issue with using projectors as well, as it depends on what we're projecting. Some of the imagery we have to watch or change. Oh, okay, that font and that color of the font doesn't fit on that. We can't really see it. The two rooms on the side where the projectors are kind of like our one's like all of our electronics room, and the other room is like basically where all the worship team like keeps all their stuff. So like the cables and all that kind of stuff management. And so we have to definitely keep the lights off in those rooms when we're using the projectors.
Right.
The one problem that we do have is we actually have a rear projector that shoots on the back wall. And that was kind of originally designed for the worship team to be able to see lyrics and that kind of stuff. And that's almost like you could barely even see it, even on the darkest day, and whatever. It's really hard to see. So that one's almost 9 times out of 10 we don't even turn it on.
Gotcha.
So but we've been talking about, at least for not necessarily for those for the sides, but for the worship team to have we've been talking about installing TVs like on the floor as like confidence monitors. So we've talked about that. We just went to move to Pro Presenter for our for all of our online stuff. And now we're running countdown clocks and stuff like that from upstairs. But the way we currently run it is our online is all on Pro Presenter, and then our in-house is a separate program. So it's two separate things as of right now. So we're in the mix right now of trying to actually connect the two so that it's one person running all of the slides for online and in-house.
Yeah. So ProPresenter, I assume you're on ProPresenter 7?
I would guess.
That's the newest one as of now, I think about 2 years.
Okay.
And so you touched on a couple things. So projector is one of the big negatives, unless you can get one that's extremely, high end. And again, we're talking like, and the whole signal is HD, either,
right.
We convert everything to SDI. I don't know if you've worked with SDI, but HDMI, I only use HDMI for as short a run as possible.
Right.
Okay.
And then SDI is how you can get, it's a broadcast, professional quality, unless you can afford to do fiber, obviously would be great.
Gotcha.
But fiber, you still have to convert the signal on each end. So when all said and done, the SDI.
I have fiber HDMI cables that were relatively inexpensive, but
yeah. And what's the distance that you can run those?
oh, they're like really, really long.
I've never used those.
Okay, not
they have
really.
To have like they have to
under
be
under 100 foot. Under 100 foot. I would say they're like 90 foot.
Are they active? Do they need power?
So HDMI apparently you can get a 5 volt in HDMI, and so yeah, I think it is powered. Yeah,
so it's basically like because it would have to have a little converter built in.
Mm-hmm. It does, yeah, and it is optical, and they're thin. They're really, really thin.
Well, I've been going. Monoprice has like these little thin HDMIs that I've been going with because I usually use like these either from a foot to 3 foot little jumpers.
Right.
Because again, we're doing all the long runs with SDI, and usually we're connecting to a television now. Which is a whole nother kind of branch of this conversation is I've been exploring using TVs as signage because I've kind of like taken on some more of our design and other roles at the church. And we were talking through signage in our lobby, which we have a really like confusing campus. So we're actually exploring using televisions just as digital signs, which is working really well, actually.
I need to, I'm going to hunt down a photo. That reminds me of something that we did for one of our events. We actually used, you can get really inexpensive, they're monitors. They're HD monitors with a touchscreen interface on the front. And then what we were doing with them was we basically hooked up a Chromebook. So you can get like little pastable Chromebooks or Chrome devices, and you stick it on the back of it, right?
Nice.
You just Velcro it to the back, and now you've got a full touchscreen interface.
Oh, that's
just a web page.
That's
cool. Send me that info because that could work really well for what we're looking to do because we're actually going to be trying to upgrade because we had a great walkthrough with our team. And hey, can we do a banner or a sign? And it was like, wait, what if we turn that into a television, guys? And they're like, yeah. And then it can be whatever you want it to be. And that's where I haven't landed on how we would be driving that signal.
So this is the panel, right? And over here, we actually had it set up so that it used a QR code reader.
Oh, nice.
To like register you that you were there. So you just held it up to the camera and it's like, boop, oh, hey, we know who you are. Thanks for coming. Now we eventually moved on and figured out, oh, really what we should be doing is, hold on a second here. Let me see if I can. But yeah, this is sort of the interface. And then, it kind of gives you an idea. There's one of, and there's that dork. I've got one of Wendy Seifert using it, but I'm not sure where that's at. But what was cool was we tried it out for that, and then we moved to RFID cards for annual conference that year, so that when people came and went, we could get quorums for voting, and you just walked up to it, boom, and the RFID card reader, all it does is it reads a number, hits enter. Which, if you hook up a web page, so parents coming in, people who want to be able to do, hey, this is where I need to be, all that kind of stuff. We handed out little PVC cards with printed up with stuff and just ID'd you when you came. We're like, oh yeah, this is you. Typed in the number, or like read the number and associated it. And that made getting people in really, really fast, like really, really fast. And it was cheap to pull off, like super. I want to say the monitors were like $300, and that includes like the touchscreen interface. They're big things, right? Totally worked as signage for us.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
jumping back to projectors, one of the things now that we have LED screens that I guess I knew, but I didn't think as much about, as you were talking about, things don't look right on a projector, you know, so you have to, and we had our whole, and this was ongoing, and I've shifted now. I'm kind of like doing a lot more. I'm now overseeing all of our graphics at the church, whereas I wasn't doing that before. So I'd have to have a lot more conversations with the people that were doing that. It was hard for them to understand, like,
contrast.
Oh, yeah, it's like, no, I have to have it this way with these colors. These colors don't work.
Right.
It was hard for them. Wait, it looks great on paper. I'm like, yeah, but it's a screen. Like, so, and then we had, certain fonts and sizes and all that kind of good stuff. Well, the first thing when we turned on the LED screen and we threw a graphic on there, it was like, what? Like, all the detail is there. Like, these contrast levels, and I'm in a meeting.
Oh, I didn't know you didn't tell me that in the meeting.
My daughter. So, yeah, I'll be done in a little bit. Do you need something?
Just want to tell you, please can you download Procreate and Among Us today?
Okay, we'll talk after. Okay, she wants some. She wants Procreate, which actually.
Among Us.
Okay, child.
It's awesome. Procreate is great.
We will do that later. So, my daughter is very much into drawing and art, and so I got her a knockoff Apple Pencil for an iPad, and then we got to get Procreate going. So, but the amount of contrast and black levels and detail that we could see now on the LED screen. So now working with, if somebody's designing something, I say, hey, if it looks good on your screen, it's going to work on our screen.
It's going to work good. Yeah.
So actually, the only issue we have is if it has a lot of white in it, which we already were careful of anyways, because white on a screen is a light source.
Right.
So it was like on the LED screen, it's really a light source. So you just got to make where before it was always the black levels we could never get right. Now it's like, make sure the white level can't be like pure white. It's got to be like knocked down a little bit if you don't want it to be, if there's a lot of white, because otherwise we have like an emergency slide. So if there's ever an emergency that comes up and it just says, please follow staff's instructions, calmly exit the room. And I made it white with red lettering, and the white, I intentionally did it. So like if for some reason,
lights up the space. Yeah.
It lights up the room. If for some reason our lights fail and our LED screen is still on for some reason, I can't think of how that would even work.
Right.
We can light the room up with just the screen.
Wow.
But then the detail that you get. So now you can really have so I'm really excited for Good Friday because there's some really kind of like design with like very thin lines, a lot of black. Yeah. And it's just like these really cool pieces of art that we can put on the screen. And before you couldn't use them. They wouldn't look right. So now we can use those and keep the room, lit the way we want to have it lit. And then ProPresenter 7, I mean, my goodness, what they've done with that, and every version, I could just go on for hours of the ways that we've been using it. But getting everything so that it works with one machine, or actually we use three machines that are synced, because we have our center screen is a 2432 by 768 like custom size. So it's like roughly 31 feet by 10 feet high. So it's a weird, so what I do is like, if I'm making content either in Premiere or Photoshop, I usually go with like the default HD size, and then I just go and customize it, and it changes the ratio for you. So in HD, that would translate to 1920 by 606 is our size. Right. You can't achieve if you don't have content that's, like video is not always like 4K. So if I'm dealing with 1080 video, you can do that and it still looks good. And the fact that our screen is not technically, it is HD width-wise, but it's not HD height-wise.
Right.
But if you're sending good content, it looks great. Like we have a screen that we got outside that's not even, I don't even know if it's standard definition pixel-wise. And when you send an HD image out there, people are like, we got to watch the Super Bowl on this thing. And I'm like, it's so funny because I'm like, it's not even 720 HD. It's barely 480 like standard def. But we're sending good content to it, so it looks really good.
Right.
So, and then you can split. So we're running one computer that's our main computer. It's running regular ratio size content for those side screens, regular 16 by 9, 1080. And then we have another computer that's set up that's running the stuff to the screen. And we actually have, the way we scale it is we've set up ProPresenter on that machine is feeding into a software on that machine called Revolume. And Revolume is changed my life because I was looking at hardware processors that can kind of scale and manipulate all the things you want it to do. I think it's only it's a couple $100, I think, for the version we're using.
Wow.
Maybe 400, but it's not more than 400, the version we're using. And what it does, I mean, it sees any input, it can manipulate any output that you have on the computer. So it's all dependent on, you need a pretty beefy video card.
Yes.
We went with the new Mac Studio. Even the lowest spec one works beautifully. And
those things are monsters.
Before that, I was using just an M chip Mac Mini, the first generation. It was working fine as well.
Yeah.
And otherwise, if we go to another machine, like a PC with a really good video card, works super well because it works on both the software, and ProPresenter 7 works on both. So you can have whatever machine works for you. And then, we get the resolution set up with the video card. I had to do a custom resolution to match it. There's a little third-party app that I did on the Mac. Set that up. So ProPresenter in the Mac has that, feeds into Resolume, and then you can real-time scale everything. You can do overlays. And so that's how we have it feeding. And then you sync, there's a synchronization feature as long as you're all on the network with ProPresenter. And then they're synced up. And then we have another machine with an older Mac, but still running ProPresenter 7 with our lower thirds for the broadcast and recording stuff.
Right.
So we can record and have lower thirds for people watching that version.
And that just syncs up.
And so basically,
primary,
I don't know if there is a limit, but it sees
it's a different show, but
exactly. And the way that it works is it's just like, so you have to have basically your playlist, whatever's in playlist 1, and then in row A, B, C, D, it'll trigger slide A, B, C, D. So if you have like more slides in your playlist than the other machine does, they'll be out of sync. So everything, but it triggers, videos. Our rear screen, we had requests for people wanting to see, because they can't see any of the screens where they're standing on stage. Sure. So we do the lyrics, but they also would be standing up there like, hey, can we see the videos? And I had no way to do it because I'm like, I have to do a whole nother screen. We could do the floor monitors, but our space didn't work that well. ProPresenter 7 opened up a feature where it has the ability to show whatever's on the main screen. You can, as you build your countdown in your rear screen, plop it in there as one of the cells, like a little, and it just says, so now it solved our problem, because
that's cool.
Like now they have that content. And even for the person communicating on stage, before it would have like a kind of like a lighter version that wouldn't show everything. So like it would never show their video clips. It would show their slides, but sometimes if it was, too much, high resolution, it wouldn't show it right. So now it shows everything, and they have a really good, plus they have their countdown, all that stuff. So ProPresenter 7, when you dig into it, because what they did is they unlocked all these modules that you used to have to pay for separately.
Right.
So if your computer has an output, we went to like the quad SDI Blackmagic cards. So I can basically route 4 different outputs and 4 different screens. And you can go in and you can change what's going out of those. So I can actually you can do alpha keying out. You can actually do just different sizes. So you can actually, if you have the 4 SDI outputs, ProPresenter will see all those, and you can actually go, oh, this one I want to send to whatever screen, but I don't want the background on it for some reason.
Right.
Or I don't want the lyrics on it for some reason.
Gotcha.
And you can turn off different features of what's going to individual screens. And so and then you can sync them all up, and then you can just, one operator is running all that stuff.
That's amazing.
And it works really, really well. So
now for here's the thing, for many of our small churches, obviously, like they're like, but we just have a screen, we just have one screen. I do want to say, this is all fairly practical stuff. This is the stuff you are going to be moving toward in the next 5 to 10, probably 5 years. Like this is the technology you will be using very, very soon, because your technology is beginning to fall apart. Like if you're using projectors have a lifespan, period.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
They run hot. They are difficult to maintain. You will probably be replacing it. So even if you aren't running a full wall, this is still like, this is stuff you really should be thinking about. Now, just to go in as another thing, because this is sort of the next step, because, one of the things about all of these is, there's sort of the, how do you get out your presentation into multiple screens and do different presentations? The other side of it is, what if you have a non-traditional, like, yes, there's long, but what if you have a non-rectangular shape, which happens more often than you think. For General Conference 3 years ago, we ended up doing it was like three different panels that were all in one, right? Like it was all one thing. And our iMag, like it was a real bear to go and get that set up correctly so that we could actually handle the artwork appropriately, and the spacing between the panels was correct and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Took him like, I think it was like an hour just getting everything, sort of split, because as far as the output is concerned, they're all on top of each other, right? They're all just one here, one here, one here. Every 12-inch panel line is one set of is one line. We split out panels over to the sides, and some people are doing individual panels that are just sitting at the front of a stage, right? And like, how do you think about that kind of thing? One option for that I've used in the past is Watch Out, which can handle many output devices. Let's see here. I think this is what. Yeah. Hold on. I agree. Don't. Yeah, it went to the mobile version here. So one use for this is being able to do composited screens across multiple surfaces, that sort of thing. Now, originally their design was for like projectors, right? Because projectors have all kinds of weird angles and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, in my particular use case, that's what I used it for. So here you have it's like, I think it's like an 8-foot screen, right? And it's like it's not a full 180. I'm going to call it 120 circle. But it's multiple projectors that had to be stitched together, right? Which meant that then they had to have 3D geometry to stitch them together. No kidding. The guy who the monitor tech or the projector tech spent 2 days lining those up, like getting the math to kind of line up and all that kind of stuff. And it was a difficult thing because, when we shot this thing, it was here, let me go back so you can see this was our camera rig. So we had, I think it was like 5 8K cameras all on a circle that was then stitched together into one big 8K image. So to get that sort of a thing, you really need something that allows for geometry, right? Thinking through distances, how they all work together so that then you can recomposite. Watch Out allows you to go and draw multiple things together to create a single, output sort of thing. And so, like, for example, we had one room. So we were doing different rooms with experiences in them that had like a projector that was shining down on a table that had to be in sync with the projector that was on the wall. And so we could tie them together with Watch Out as one output, right? It allows you to gang multiple outputs together into a single experience. And then in our particular case, we just ran it over the network. We just said, now you're running this, and now you're running this, and now you're running this, and it handled it. Now it's an expensive option. Watch Out is very, very expensive, but it can map video onto the surface of a car, which is pretty cool.
And that's Resolume, which I was talking about, which is what we're using.
Yeah,
has quite a few of those mapping features as well.
Yeah, and a lot less expensive.
A lot less expensive. It's kind of built off of more of the visual DJ. So like It has a lot of layers you can create like on the fly. Yeah. Just overlaid effects and stuff.
Yep.
But it for sure does the projection mapping at a much smaller price tag. So yeah, it's kind of crazy what are out there, because I was looking at some hardware. There's I don't know if Christy owns it, but it's a thing called Spider, and it's like, we're talking like 50 grand to do what I was needing to do with hardware.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the software that I'm using, again, with a decent computer, so the computer, a couple $1,000,
right?
But compared to 50,000 plus, I'm like, no, I can't afford that. So
Yep.
And with LED screens, especially in smaller churches, the thing is, because the prices have come down so much, what you ultimately end up saving with having to mount a projector, control the lighting, just the maintenance of lamps and all that kind of stuff. Like I was looking, there's the company we did go with, they had actually another church in Pomona that was just a small, very traditional, I think, Korean church. And so they weren't going for a fancy background. They just needed screens and they fit really nicely. They have a lot of light. So light spill was a big issue with their projectors in the past. Having a big, ugly projector, they couldn't do rear projection. So you had these projectors in their space, and in the more traditional space, very, didn't look right.
Right.
Like that lighter colored wall and ceiling. So yeah, now you just have the screen, and you obviously need a little bit of space behind it to connect everything, but it takes up very minimal. And when you're looking at a 10-foot wide screen, the price, it depending if you're doing projection like the right way, it's going to be about the same price. There's always going to be like cheaper ways to do projection.
Sure,
get like a cheap whatever, but then, and if that's what your budget allows, that's what it allows, and you just have to get creative how to make that look good. We had many years with that. But if you're actually kind of like apples for apples, and you're going, okay, the right projection for the right lighting, the right size versus LED, they're now very similar as far as budget goes. So
it's good to know. That's awesome. That's good to know.
Yeah, and then for your rear screen, I mean, that's the next upgrade. We're still doing a projection, short throw projection for our rear screen, and I just built like a custom 8-foot little screen thing that we have, and it's working, but like it's not quite bright enough. But we've boosted up, kind of. We're still playing that game of
the distance,
white. Yeah,
the distance on the mezzanine is not all that bad. It's like that's one of the things is I actually think it's further to their back wall over at Lamb's than it is to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's a pretty long room, even though it's set up wide. It still is a pretty long room.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Having hung out in both,
TVs on the stage might be a great option for you. So
yeah. I think we'll definitely have to look at that. I know our pastor at one point was talking about would like to have the LED panels in the back behind him, but. I don't know. I mean, we'd have to do like kind of a crazy wall because it would be to do the whole thing behind him where the way it's set up would be like 30 or 40 feet wide by at least the same high. I mean, it'd be, it would look kind of,
it needs to be that big.
Weird if you only did like the bottom third of the wall as screens. I think it would look odd. Okay. So yeah, but I think
so you can get creative with. You do like an ultra wide, if it made sense for just like lyrics and whatever, versus a traditional 16:9 screen. Because that's what I was going to explore with ours, because we have kind of our mezzanine balcony. It's actually odd. The screen has to hang down so much, which the way we did the renovation, we've made that it's a lot less intrusive because we made a camera's position right there that it kind of like is over now. So it's not just in the middle of the walkway. Now that makes sense where it is, but like. To maximize the space so it didn't hang down as much, I was thinking about doing a wider, so you could almost have like countdowns to the left and right, and the text in the center. But if LED screens are cool because you can configure them, and then you use the software, whatever software you're using, you can get your content to it in the right ratio. So
that's cool. Good stuff.
Well, that was a good topic. I think this is going to be one that I think a lot of our churches really. I hope they pick up on it, because this is going to be a huge one moving forward. And actually, it's super helpful for me because like we've got annual conference coming up May 20th. Michelle, if you're interested in shooting for us, I'd love for you to shoot.
Yeah, I shot you an email so we can.
Okay, cool. So I'd love to. I know we're going to have certain projection sort of limitations based off of the way that APU does their staging and all that kind of stuff, but I'm kind of excited to see what we have, because in the past we've always been an upper turner, and upper turner is just it's so short, it's such a short ceiling, you just have screens, and now we're going to be over in Felix, so that's
nice. That should be fun.
Oh yeah, I know yeah.
Is Felix is that the off campus? I mean, because I haven't been there for a while.
It's the sports stadium.
Oh, okay.
Event center, I believe.
Event center. There we go.
Event center. So that's not the main campus. Is that
West Campus?
Yeah.
West.
Is that what they still call it?
I mean, I think they still just treat it as one. I don't think it's West Campus anymore.
When I was there, it was West Campus.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Yeah, I was there 79 to 84. So and and the last time I visited was when we moved back, was 2018. And I don't know that I took a look at the other campuses. So.
Oh yeah, yeah.
My senior year, they had opened the event center. So, and that was John Wallace was his inaugural year as president. So
wow. My senior year, they had purchased the Avery building full out, and so they had just gutted it.
Okay.
And so we were using it as so I was in the art program. We were using it as like filming space, and like it was the edgy warehouse space. It was it's where theology and art
on West
are
Campus
at right now. Yeah.
So that was still warehouse when I was there.
Yeah.
And we did the same thing. We filmed and we rode skateboards. And
Yep.
Yeah. That was an awesome room when it was empty.
It was huge, and it was so great to just screw around in. It was the best.
Yeah, because that's where like the edit bays in our studio was, right? Was that still right there? So the doors that would go in there, we'd be there late. We'd go in there and.
When were you guys there? Like what years?
I was there 99 to 2001.
And I graduated in 96. So
yeah. It's on the senior member. Sure.
Come on, Keith. Where's the APU? Come on. APU.
I didn't attend, so I'm not in this conversation. Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. Not everybody needs to get the Wesleyan, holiness education experience. I'm usually what we do is once we get to the end of the topic stuff, we then, we'll go and end in prayer and stuff like that. I don't record that because it's weird. So I'm going to turn off the recording, but if you were with us online, I want to thank you for showing up, and I'm excited to go and see. The group is really growing. It's kind of amazing to watch the number of people coming and going. Not a lot of interaction because I think we're all pretty busy, which I get. That I understand. And nobody, we don't really need to be posting memes, but if you do have stuff that you need, stuff that is important for you to, you just have questions, it's honestly a good place to go and ask those. So make sure to do that. And if you aren't part of the group and you found this on YouTube, just join us on Facebook. It's what is it at? All right, it's FMC Media. So groups/FMC Media, and you can join it. So I'm going to stop this and we'll go into prayer. And thanks for being with us.